Yep, recording.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started though, and Elise can jump in when she gets here. First of all, I wanted to say welcome. Ashley and I are going to co-lead the group meeting tonight. So I thank you for joining us, taking time out of your evening to meet. The purpose of this group tonight is to get to know each other a little bit better. We had introductions in our class last week, but I wanted us to get to know each other a little bit better and dig a little bit deeper into some of the things that as students of Townsend Institute that we might be struggling with or having anxiety about or fears about as we work towards becoming licensed counselors. So I wanted us to talk a little bit about that tonight. Before we dive in, I have a few housekeeping details. First of all, the group is supposed to be about an hour to an hour and a half in length. So we will end on time. Don't worry about us going 2 or 3 hours. That's not going to happen. If we get off on a tangent, I'll probably give us an Elmo. Do y'all know what an Elmo is? We used to use that at work whenever we had coworkers that were in a meeting would just go off and keep going about a subject. It's enough, let's move on. So if somebody starts, going off on a tangent and maybe talking about something that's not really the subject, you can jump in and say Elmo, and I'll do the same, and then we just all move on. Take a break if you need to. It's not going to bother me or Ashley. Just, get up and take your break if you need to take a break. We want it to be informal and fun and everybody participate. Plus we want it to be useful. So we want to walk away from the group having a sense that we know each other better and that we actually got something out of the hour that we spent together. And then finally, just a reminder, and we all know this, that confidentiality is important. And we may talk about some things amongst ourselves that don't need to go anywhere. So I found a quick video I wanted to share with you. I'm only going to play part of it. Let's see. Can y'all see my screen? My browser? Okay. So I'm just play this real quick.
How are you? Not great. Nothing in my life is going in the direction I want it to be going.
Sorry, Matthew, can I interrupt you right here? Sure. I don't think you're doing as badly as you think you're doing. If I may tell you about some of the other patients I see, I know I'm not supposed to because of doctor-patient confidentiality, but I think it might help you.
Sure.
Like this one guy I see, right? Real loser, lives with his mother, but to make him feel like a big man, he pays her rent, but it's like $30. It's like pretend rent. They're like, oh, here, mommy, I'm a big boy, I pay you the rent. I work at a job and I pay you the rent. Here you go, make me a PPA check because I'm a widow bitch. I'm a widow bitch and I live under the stairs like Harry Potter.
That was me.
Really?
Yeah, we talked about it last week. I explained to you the rent system that my mother and I worked out, and you said it was a step in the right direction.
And it is. It is. You're doing great. And hey, at least you're not doing as bad as this other guy I see. He has a erectile dysfunction.
Okay, I was going to stop it right there because they get into some topics that might be a little bit iffy. But I thought that was pretty funny. So hopefully none of us will make that kind of mistake with a patient or a client. So anyway, any questions before we dive in? Okay, let's get started. We're going to move on to our first activity. And we introduced ourselves last week and we gave our name and where we're from and what year we're from. So tonight I wanted us to go just a little deeper and we're going to do a round and answer a couple questions. The first one is, what is our favorite thing about Townsend Institute? And the second question is, what is our biggest challenge about it? So I'm just going to go down and around my screen. So Jared, I'm going to start with you. You're at the top.
Okay, great. So I would
say that my favorite aspect so far has been definitely the emphasis on emotion in the client therapist relationship.
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of programs, as far as I know, it's, more recent research that they provide in this program. I think I mentioned it last week that I had been in the program a few years back. So recently I had just been reviewing a lot of my old documents and stuff. And some of the stuff that just fascinates me is just like the memory reconsolidation and things like that. So I'd say that that would be, what's that?
I said very good. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's for me, it's just more their focus on the emotion and just the relational aspect of it. But
Mhm.
for me, my challenge so far is getting back into it.
Yep.
I'm a little bit like, what should I review? What should I remember? Just trying to remember certain counseling skills and
Oh yeah.
that stuff. So, because it's been like 2 years for me. So when I was getting ready to come back in, I was like, well, I don't know. I don't have time to review all the classes that I took. So that's a little bit of the aspect that's giving me a little bit of anxiety. It's just,
Okay.
am I prepared to jump back in? How hard is it going to be to feel like I'm back into it?
Okay. Thank you, Jared.
Yeah.
Let's see next, and welcome to Elise. Next is Holly. Holly, you want to answer the 2 questions?
Sure. Okay, so the first one was what our favorite thing about the Townsend Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's see. Favorite thing. I really love my cohort. Like, I just so enjoy getting texts. I mean, almost daily. It's just so nice. I feel like they have my back. When I have a question or have a problem, I can go to them. And I just love how supportive everybody is. So that is by far my most favorite thing is just having my cohort friends. My biggest challenge, just getting all the work done and feeling overwhelmed. When you talked about the topic for tonight, I was like, this is so perfect. That's exactly what I need, because I do feel a lot of anxiety. And in the one sense, it's good because I make sure I get things done because I'm really worried and anxious about making sure I get all the assignments done. But it's also bad because then I sometimes get migraine headaches, and I check like 3 times to make sure that I submitted something and it actually went through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my biggest challenge is just managing my time and the anxiety.
Okay. Thank you, Holly. I'm sure a lot of us have those same challenges and fears too.
And I texted Elise, by the way, to see where she is. She hasn't responded, but
She just jumped
I'm
on.
here.
oh, she did. Oh, okay, good. There you are. I didn't see you. It's right
Yeah.
now my.
Technical difficulties. Apologies.
Oh, okay.
So let's see, Caroline, you're next.
Yeah. So favorite thing about Townsend, and then one thing that's been a challenge. I think my favorite thing has been, well, I don't have anything to compare it to, but I've loved some of the material, especially when we were first learning how to like basic therapy skills and attuning someone and really like reflecting back to them. I've loved that. I don't know if that's specific to Townsend. That's probably specific to any counseling program, but specific to Townsend, I really like that they have all the Institute fellows and all the like broad range of different types of people we get to hear from.
Yeah.
And that I think just adds a lot to the educational experience. And then the challenge I think for me is the length of time, like the classes being 7-week classes. Just I feel like there's so much to learn in so little time. And
yeah,
I feel like I can't soak it all in and want to soak it all in. And so I think there's just like a little bit of anxiety that's probably induced from just the fire hose of like trying to learn everything in such a short amount of time. So I think that would be the most challenging thing, I think, about the way it's set up.
It goes so fast. Yeah,
Yes.
before you know it, it's over and you're moving on to something else.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next is Janet. Oh, you're muted.
Okay. My favorite thing about the program is how they started out kind of with the kickoff where we kind of met people. So I'm like Holly, like I love my cohort and I love knowing people in the groups. So whether it be my cohort or people like I've really become close with in a class, I just love having small classes and seeing the same people and really developing that relationship. So I love that part of it. I think the most challenging part for me is sometimes I'm not sure. I feel like some of the assignments like are not as specific as maybe sometimes like I like to have things. I like to have things like very much like written out exactly what we're supposed to do. And my the very first teacher I had here, he really knocked off a lot of points for doing things that like were kind of random. And so I sometimes I feel that way. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to do here. I want it really spelled out. So you know, which that too is kind of a form of anxiety. So I think that's my biggest challenge.
Okay. Thank you, Janet. Elise, do you want me to repeat the questions or you think you got the gist of it?
I got the gist of it.
Okay.
So I would say one thing that I really love about the Townsend Institute is actually the Townsend model. I just think there's a lot of wisdom in it. I love the concept of grace, truth, and time being these catalysts for change. And I love the psychodynamic background of it because that's something that really resonates with my theoretical orientation. So yeah. And then as far as the challenge goes, I would just say that it's like very fast paced as far as learning a lot of information within sort of this quarter system or these, 2 terms within one semester. And so, I mean, I don't mind it. I don't feel like I don't feel stressed about it, but it does keep me on my toes. So.
Okay. Thanks, Elise. And let's see, Ashley, you want to share?
Yeah, so I will say one thing I love about the Townsend Institute is getting to meet people from all around the United States and the world and be able to have that connection and know that I'm going to be able to grow with them and be able to grow spiritually, but not even just that, grow mentally, physically, and just be able to have that connection that I'll get to share on for years to come. And then my challenge is I will definitely say working and going to school full time.
I bet. Yes. Working 2 jobs and going to
Yes,
school.
yes.
Yes. That would be definitely challenging. And for myself, the thing I like best are the people. The people I met have all just been so supportive and so nice, and just the bonding that's taken place with my cohort and also with other classmates that I've gotten to know. Challenge for me is just trying to absorb it all and trying to remember it. That has just feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose sometimes, and kind of worried about being able to just retain that information and pull it out when I need it. So, okay. Thank you for participating in that first exercise. I'm going to hand it over to Ashley, and she's going to open it up for some further discussions.
Awesome. So I actually am going to talk about our dreams and fears when it comes to Townsend Institute. And I think the biggest thing is we have to look at this opportunity as being our tree, and all our anxieties are the little worms that feed into our mulch, which will then end up growing into hopefully our dreams. So that brings me into the activity I want to do for you guys. So if you want, you guys could take like a couple minute break just take a deep breath, relax, because I will need you guys to make sure you have a piece of paper and pen, pencils, or whatever is easier for you guys. So sorry about that. So is everyone good to go? Does everyone have their pencils and pens? Okay. So what I want you to do is draw a tree with branches, and it can look like however you want the tree to look. And then the next step after that, underneath, I want you to draw the ground. And then about, I would say, 5 or 6 worms. Or they could just be stick figures, whatever floats your boat. And then the next step, what I want you to do is turn those worms into what you are fearing the most with the Townsend Institute.
Is this what we're fearing as far as like when we're envisioning being future counselors someday, or about the school specifically?
Being a counselor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you guys can turn off your cameras if you want, just to make sure that you don't feel the pressure of someone watching like myself, or if you need me to step away for a minute, let me know. How's everyone feeling? Good. Okay, so the next step, once everyone's ready, so let me know if you need some more time or if you are all good to go. Perfect. Okay, so the next step, what we're going to do is choose one fear that you feel comfortable with sharing with the group. And we're going to help you maneuver that fear into becoming a goal or a dream for you. Okay. So who would like to start?
I can start.
Okay.
Or Janet, if you want to go. Okay. Okay. Whenever you were explaining this assignment, the very first thing that came to mind that was like right there, and I know is like such a deep fear for me, is the fear of not having anything to say. And I think that that just is really, when I think about being a counselor, that is like my worst nightmare when I think about it. So, yep.
Does anyone else have that fear as well?
Mhm. Yep, me too, Caroline. Yeah, like I'll get in there and just freeze up and freak out or something, you know, and have to leave. That's my fear.
I put something similar, but I worded it being not prepared. This general fear that I'll never be prepared for the situations.
I've thought about that too, just like maybe someone coming in with something and just having no idea like where to go with it, you know, or how to handle it, you know, just kind of, you know.
Like almost like every time you have to walk into the door, you have to wing it.
Yeah.
So Caroline, I think we should help you build a branch. So how would you feel about that?
I feel good about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who wants to help her and try to make this branch or this worm get to her dream?
Can you explain a little bit more what you're
Yeah, of course.
looking for?
So basically, her fear is the worm that's eating into the ground, and it really can be used to help grow into a dream. So let's try to help her try to grow into this. So she is able to express her fears and be able to lessen her anxiety.
You know, maybe part of, I don't know if this is what we're supposed to do maybe, but you know, maybe like part of it is, I guess, just maybe for you and any of us who have that fear to remember how powerful silence or waiting can be. I think oftentimes we jump in just to humans, really quickly. And sometimes just letting something sit for a few seconds or whatever, that can be beneficial. And, that may be enough time then to kind of, have a response that can lead to some other information or whatever.
Yeah.
So like breathe with the client.
What? Say that again. Oh, breathe with the client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Breathe with the client. So, because you're allowed to breathe too. I mean, you tell the client all the time to breathe. Allow yourself to breathe. Because if they see yourself as breathing, they're gonna breathe as well. So it's just a learning.
I like that. Remember the power of silence.
Yeah.
I think that's really good.
Kind of thinking along those lines of like, you can always fall back on a tuning, just naming the emotions, because it's very simple. It doesn't require a lot of words or explanations. And it just triggers them to just keep exploring, It's always keeping the ball in their court. It doesn't really require a lot, from our words, in terms of what we can say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I read something like, maybe it was in the textbook or something, that like you don't talk more than like a third of the time in a session, because it's really about them and them sharing. And so it helps to keep in mind that like you're not like, for me, like the only time I'm worrying about what I'm going to say is when I'm focused on myself, right? Like if I'm attuned to somebody and I'm actually listening to what they're saying, then naturally when it's appropriate to say something will come out. But, like it's, if we're present in the moment with a client, like hopefully we're not sitting there worrying about what we're going to say. We'll naturally be able to fall back on our education, our own experience. At that point, you'll have hundreds, if not thousands of hours of doing this before you have a license. So, you'll have that foundation. It's not like we just hop into a room and start counseling people. It takes years of us practicing this before we even get to call ourselves a counselor technically. So
yeah.
Yeah, I like what you said, Elise, about when we're worrying about what we're going to say, we're focusing on ourselves instead of our clients. So that's a good way to try to use mindfulness, is to, when you find yourself doing that, to be mindful of it and bring yourself back into that focus on them. So I like that.
I'm writing notes as y'all are talking. So
Yeah.
if you're making eye contact is because this is all really good. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. So who wants to embrace their fear next?
I'll share one. I mean, I don't know that it's a fear, but I guess I have a concern of not finding this is during this program, not finding a practicum or internship that is like a good fit for me. Yeah, so just making sure that I get those hours and have fun doing it.
That I can really relate to that. That was one of the ones, that's what I kind of wrote down, just kind of worried that I'm not going to find something that's a really good fit. Like I know there's going to be positions, but a place that I feel good at working at. I've heard some stories, maybe from people who worked at places where, just wasn't run well or whatever. And so I feel that as well, that anxiety.
Yeah, that's also one of mine. So I do worry a lot about finding one and making it work with my schedule, and finding a supervisor that I really connect with. And so that's definitely one of mine as well. So I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to change it into I let it feed my branch, the branches of my tree. But I have just thought, okay, I'll just one step at a time, right? Like first, do the research, try and find places around me, and then contact them, and try and do some digging. Okay, what's your theoretical orientation? And, what types of experience do you have supervising other students? And, I just have to slow down and think of one at a time, one thing at a time, one step. So I'm sorry, that's probably not very helpful. That's all I can think of.
That is helpful. Thank you.
And sometimes even though your fear is kind of stuck in that ground area, that doesn't mean that it has to grow. You can learn from it and try to kind of dig in and see why it's stuck there. But like for this goal or fear, it might not be where it's ever going to grow into a branch. Does someone else want to go next, or?
I was just going to say, a thought that was coming to mind for me is things are not always as they seem. And I think that sometimes even things that maybe initially it's like, oh, this isn't like the perfect ideal fit that I would want. And I've found that like sometimes some of the greatest learning experiences are from something that it was the door that opened and you walked through it. And I think sometimes it's so easy. I'm key of the like anxious worriers. So I'm preaching to myself here. But it can be so easy to like get caught up in like, oh, is this what I want? Or the options don't look like, what I want. But to just kind of trust the process and walk through the open door that does, if there is an open door that appears apparent, and really like glean what you can from it. I think that it can be really beautiful on the other side. So I don't know. I think just like the things aren't always as they appear. We can't like assume an end before we walk through it. Can help me at least not feel like so anxious.
I love that because you're right. I think you're right. Like even when I reflect on some of my experiences that have been really, challenging or whatever, you're right. The things I learned from them were invaluable. So thank you. That was really helpful for me. I appreciate it.
I thought that was a really good thought as well, that it doesn't have to be perfect. We just have to start somewhere, right? We find the best situation we possibly can, but if it's not perfect, it's still,
it's not permanent. Like it's, I think that helps too.
Yeah, and sometimes if we're in situations, that we don't like, or maybe we don't like our supervisor, and this may be just trying to put a positive spin on things, is we can learn where we don't want to work and what we don't want to be like as counselors.
Exactly.
I actually just remembered something as we were talking about this too. Just a few weeks back with my therapist, she presented this idea. I don't know if you guys have heard it, like painful past, worrisome or fearful future. So it's like there's several different, like, I guess, camps that our perspectives could be in. And specifically kind of what we're talking about is this like fearful future. But so there's like painful past, fearful future, reminiscent past, and exciting future. But then in the middle of all of them, it's here and now. So, we could be, our perspective could be in one of those four other places instead of the here and now. In the present, what can we do about it now? Those kind of things. I don't know if that's helpful, but it kind of made me think about. that with some of the other things I've been thinking about too.
Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective, Jared, because that's kind of like how I approach this whole thing. And it was actually very difficult for me to think of anything that I don't feel like not even about the internship thing. It's like, I don't feel anxious about it. I'm like, when I'll cross that bridge when I get there. So I don't really have like fears about the future with this path. I'm actually very excited about it. And I'm just in the moment enjoying where I'm at with the schoolwork. So I really appreciate that perspective. I don't think, projecting into the future isn't really helpful for me. So
That's good to know. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wanted to maybe discuss their fears or even their dreams?
Well, I can discuss one of the fears I wrote down. It's of making a mistake, like doing something stupid. I read so many, so many things in our readings, and I think, oh, I've done that. Oh, yep, I've done that. Oh, yeah, that's totally me. So I guess I just fear, okay, what if I forget all this training? What if I fall back onto one of my usual, traps or bad communication, that list. Anyway, so that's one of my fears, is just making a really stupid mistake.
Yes, and for even myself, making mistakes is like the hardest thing to get over. Like if I make the mistake, I'm going to live that for the next 5 minutes. And it's like, where do I step in to make sure that doesn't happen, for me to continue to relive that mistake?
yeah, Holly, I think that's a legitimate fear. I think we can guarantee that we're all going to make mistakes. So I think that's just something we got to get used to. It's just being human.
Yeah, true.
I was thinking of, I watched the video, the lecture that Dr. Gordon put out. And she was saying how she still meets on a monthly basis with a group of people to review their cases, because I've been afraid of that too, of mistakes. And I thought one of the best ways to prevent them, but also learn from them, is having that consistent accountability. Maybe we make an effort to stay in touch with our supervisor after we, finish, and develop a relationship with them to where they're an open door for discussing things or whatever. Just a thought.
No, I like that. There is comfort in thinking that we can put ourselves in a humble place to say, am I doing this right? Or what would you have done? How could I have done this differently? I think that makes it a little bit easier. I'm not as fearful of making mistakes if I can imagine putting myself in a humble place where I just really want to learn. And then I can learn from my mistakes.
I think something a thought that came to mind too, as you were talking, Holly, was just how relationships are so like fluid and like resilient and able to like recover and bounce back when mistakes are made. And that one mistake, so often I'm like, oh, that just shattered it. That just ruined everything. But then given grace, truth, and time, it's like, no, it does recover. It does come back. And so I think just having that view of a relationship that's like, it's more pliable than we sometimes allow it to be. I think it's a, porcelain doll, and it's putty. And so people can bounce back. And I think, I don't know, that's just a thought I had while you were talking.
I like that. Thank you.
I think it kind of helps me too when I remember that, like, we're reading about like the best way to do things, and anytime you read any book, about anything, parenting or, whatever, what a different career, you're reading about the best way to do it. But in reality, nobody's ever doing it that way all the time, right? You're always working towards getting to that place. So kind of remembering that, of course, nobody really does it exactly like this all the time. You're always a work in progress.
That's true. Well, thank you, everybody. I thought those ideas were really good. I can feel my anxiety going down.
Perfect. So the main goal is to try to trick your brain and go over to the other side when it comes to like having anxiety and and when it comes to anxiety and you want to try to trick your brain, you have to figure out what is the solution. And like, for instance, if you were to hit your toe right now, and if you were to then pinch your hand, you would notice all your pain went to your hand instead of your toe. And so I'm not saying go stub your toe or pinch your hands when you're having anxiety, but make it so you have an area where you can breathe, meditate, or relax, so that in that moment you'll be able to maneuver yourself from that anxiety.
So I don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, I don't know if any of y'all struggle with this. I have this fear of being a fake, being a fraud, like being a pretend counselor. Like I've gone through all this education and learning and passed the boards, but I'm faking it. Do y'all get that? Some of the jobs I had in the past, I felt like that too. So I don't really know what's behind that, but yeah, it's just that voice tape in my head. You're a fake, you're a fraud, you don't know what you're doing, that kind of thing.
What is your worst, if I can ask, what is your worst, like if you were to take that to an extreme, like what is your worst fear in that? Like, is it like a client exposing you and being like, oh, you're fit, or like, I don't know, how does that play out? Like, what is your worst day where that fear like comes true or whatever?
Maybe like totally messing up a session and a client goes to the supervisor and he's like, what are you, where did you come up with that stuff? What are you doing? And the thing that flashed through my head just now was, and maybe this is where it comes from, is I can see my dad kind of doing that, like when I was younger. So maybe that's where it comes from. But yeah, it would be exposure. That's probably at the root of it, of what the heck are you doing here? That,
Okay.
yeah, that would be my biggest fear about this.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I relate to that in a lot of ways. So I was wondering how it played out for you. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Caroline.
That if we all thought long and hard enough about it, we'd all have those voices in our head of someone in our life, in our past, or even ourselves, disqualifying us in some way, shape, or form.
Yep, you would think that all kind of disappear as you get older, but it doesn't.
So my objective of why I made you create this dream and fear tree is to basically to look back on it at the end of your studies and to see where you've become and how far your tree has grown. And, I don't want you to worry if it doesn't grow into what you thought it was, because just like Caroline said, not all doors might open. So you have to be willing to know that. And that's why I think it's perfect for you guys to just sit here, take the time, look at it, and analyze what dreams and fears are going through your mind right at this moment, at the beginning of this stage of taking the Townsend Institute courses. And then maybe look back on year 4 or year 3 and go, wow, this is where I've become. Or you might even laugh at it saying, I can't believe I feared at that. And I challenge you to even make it colorful and unique and to put silly little stickers on it that are words of encouragement. So you sit there and you can even frame it on your wall. So you have to look at it maybe every other day. But if that's what gives you the anxiety, then store it in a box, put it away, and come back to it. Does anybody have any questions or anything they feel they want to discuss? Or
Sounds
even
like-
advice for each other?
I was just going to comment that I'm noticing that a lot of our fears have a similar theme of just our ability to get through the program, find the right placement, do a good job, our confidence, or lack thereof, kind of showing as one of these fears.
I feel like I might be leaving this group with more anxiety than I came into it with. I don't even, these aren't even things I was thinking of. Like I'm just excited about the program and stuff. I don't really think too far ahead.
I think that's great, Elise. I'm jealous. I wish I were less worrisome. I think you're doing fantastic.
Same. Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, and Elise, were you, I may be mixing you up with someone, but aren't you already doing some counseling or group therapy type stuff with people? Was that you who said you were already kind of doing some of
I
that?
have in the past. I don't do that anymore. I just work for myself now, but I have done that in the past. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that helps too. Like you've kind of already done some of it, so maybe your confidence is a little bit higher too, because you've already been in there a little.
Yeah, I'm sure that definitely plays a role, but also that's just the mindset I take with life. I'm just present. So I'm not really worrying too much about the future. I just know that I'm where I'm meant to be.
Yeah, it's great.
That is awesome. That's very healthy.
That's beautiful.
So Ashley, did you have any other activities you wanted to go through?
No, that was the main one. I just didn't know how long it was going to take.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we had some good discussion. Our goal was to go a little bit deeper, and I think we did do that, and we were vulnerable about some of the things that we're worried about and have fear of. So let's see, it's 8:54. Thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed the group. I hope you got something out of the group. Is there anybody that wants to say anything else before we adjourn? Anything?
I can, when it's my turn to be a leader, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Help me out. You guys are doing great. I just
Thanks.
have no idea what we're supposed to do.
Ashley and I, we talked today and came up with some ideas of, what did we want this to look like for the first session? And we thought maybe just getting together and just talking about some things we're worried about. So I think maybe we could talk about practicum or internship. That would be a good, I think, group discussion.
Mhm. That is a good idea.
And like ways to find activities for practicums, or like, for instance, even finding practicums. I know sometimes it could be tricky and not knowing whether it's a scam or not. So
I feel like it might be helpful. I don't know how well you guys know each other or if you guys are in a cohort together,
Yeah.
but I feel like it might be really helpful for us to just get to know each other a little bit better, just on a more personal level. Otherwise we're just going to spend our groups talking about the Townsend Institute and just some, like counseling, which I think we can, which is great. That's fine too. But I just think we might be able to form a little bit more connection if we get to know each other on a personal level first. Because I feel like I don't really actually know anything personal about you guys at all. I mean, I know Holly a little bit because we've been in a course before together, but that's just kind of how I'm feeling about it. So I don't know.
I would appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah. So who's doing next week? That would be perfect for next week. Let's see. Oh, Elise, it's you and Jared.
Yeah.
You're the leader.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
some ideas. So Jared, we can talk.
Okay. Yeah, I'd appreciate that too, because I actually don't have a cohort. So the one that I had before, they're either all graduated or they left. So
Oh, Jared will be your cohort.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd love to get to know you guys more.
Mhm.
Caroline and I are actually in a cohort together.
Yep. But our cohort is all either half of them dropped or the other half are like in a different class. So open to more different cohort as well.
Janet and I are in the same cohort.
So you'll just be in everyone's cohort.
Yeah, we're open to friends.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Did y'all have a lot of people drop, like leave the program?
From ours, I don't know, Ashley, I think we had like 7 or 8 originally, and I think about 4